Hello, it is raining outside, and I just watched a video about the heavens, the celestial beings, if you will, aka the sky outside our Earth, because it's always been a topic, isn't it? I will eventually get to Wuthering Waves, because I'm not going to lie, I'm still rather shocked, if you will, by the gravity of 2.2 main story, which is like it's great, but also like I have some question in the grander scheme of things, because like let's remember that Wuthering Waves started with us in the sky, which is kind of giving PGR, but we're not going to go there too deeply because, I think like most of you who knows me don't really play PGR. I assume, I don't really know. But in the light of recently, we know that there's an asteroid coming, and like people don't really like talk about it, which I find kind of interesting and scary. But like if we got hit by an asteroid, then we got hit by an asteroid. In the light of that, there's also like a theory called that our universe is actually a black hole because there's a tilting into it. You can look it up. I think it's rather fascinating. I quite like the sky, because like I'm not going to lie, I'm generally a pretty stressed person. For the majority of my life, I had been a high achiever. I can still achieve high, and so I'm just wanting to do life more for myself. So like the idea that we're actually just like a blink of an eye, if you will, in the universe is actually pretty freaking kind of like relieving to me, which is weird. But I'm also someone who rather enjoy, meditation about death, like death meditation. You can look it up. Like there's a whole thing about that. In basically meditate and kind of like think, well, I'm dying right now. I'm gonna like, well, you either get cremated or maybe like you rot, because that's what happened with organic body, right? So like the idea that, with my kind of like, I don't know whether you call it nihilistic or pessimistic, because sometimes, I would say I'm generally a pretty positive person, but I'm not going to lie that the idea of oblivion is pretty enticing, if you will. I don't know whether this is necessarily good or not, but I understand that I'm generally a pretty overwhelmed person because of like my background, my family, and the kind of community that I'm in. But if the universe is a black hole, I think like it's important to know that the thing with black hole is that because of the density of its gravity is that we're not escaping it, you know what I mean? So like we're actually already on this kind of like trajectory to nothingness in a way. Like that's the thing with black hole though, because we know so little about it. We don't know what is on the other side of black hole. They say it's white hole, which means that whatever gets sucked into the black hole is like a portal in a different time and space, which will be interesting, but like we can't know that. Like no one can get into the black hole and like save, and then like survive to tell the tale. Kind of same energy with like no one has died and come back and can tell you what happened. Was it David Copperfield? I remember there's like a magician who like literally told people that, what, if there's like a life after death and whatnot, if I can come back, I'll come back from the dead. But he still hasn't returned. So who knows? Like that's part of the mystery, right? So returning to Wuthering Waves, I feel like the crux of the narrative would be, we are actually also in a way in a black hole, but like the thing with the black hole is that it can also be kind of like some sort of like infinity type of black hole. So like within our universe, because again our universe is very big compared to us, compared to me, I'm 5 feet, but like within our infinity, because again our universe also has black holes. So is it just like a black hole inside a black hole inside a black hole, kind of like turtles all the way down, but also like Matryoshka, that Russian doll, like, but like with infinity, like just like the infinite regression, like that would be funny. But what I'm thinking is that is it possible that considering we like, it's like our character, the Rover, is incredibly powerful, right? And what really stick with me is when Sentinel Imperator, the Sentinel of Renacita, asked us as Lord Arbiter, as Lady Arbiter, whether we have fulfilled their role, basically, right? And that's kind of sus to me, in a sense that we kind of we had an agreement, and we also kind of have it almost seems like Sentinel Imperator, of course, did that to protect humanity, right? But also there's this element of we were there as the arbiter to witness it, to make sure that they do the deed that they're supposed to do. So what are we? Why are we doing this? Why are we as a Rover doing this? Is my main question. I feel like I keep saying but it is what it is. This is a spontaneous recording. So if that is the case, it means that my theory is that this is a loop. This is not our first rodeo, if you will. This is not the first time we as a Rover goes down to Solaris 3, or maybe a planet like Solaris 3, and then doing this timeline. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's kind of the vibe to it, right? And let's remember, it's called Wuthering Waves. And the whole thing with the Wuthering Waves, kind of main element of universe, is low-key string theory. Everything is resonant, everything is voice, everything is waves. That's why it's called Wuthering Waves. I think Wuthering Waves is kind of actually reference. I can't believe I'm trying to solve the end game of Wuthering Waves, but here I am. Is the chaos, this gravitational pull of evil in the form of Thernodian, if you will. That is something that we as humanity has to face within this universe. So what happened is that I feel the reason why Rover kind of erases his or her memory is because we're trying to start anew, and we're trying to find a way to kind of save humanity. Because the reason why they're redoing this timeline, if you will, is that because humanity perished and died prior, in previous timelines. That's why now this time Rover's trying to doing it again. Yes, they're supposed to be the Imperator. I'm going to call it just him because I'm playing male Rover at the moment. So the reason why, this time we keep seeing Rover makes the decision that is, they're the Imperator, but they're trying to change the timeline as well, right? I know that in a sense of the Shorekeeper story, Shorekeeper wants to be the part of the Tethys system, and we as a Rover trying to find another way, because we don't want the Shorekeeper to basically sacrifice herself. And we did something about it. We fought the Tethys system, right? I still don't know the end of that story, because kind of it says, is the Tethys system working right now? Are we going to touch it again once we go to the next region after Renacita, which I assume would be the new Federation? Are we going to touch that again? And also, it's the same thing. It's kind of a pattern now, because we see this happening for the second time in Cassiopea's story, in 2.2 story, in which, Cassiopeia is kind of okay, well, the way that this has to end, low-key, high-key, is that I have to die because I contain the seed of the dark tide, of the destruction, because the Thernodian made me, right? And the rebels are no, I'm going to do this my own way. So, but they're also the arbiter. Literally 2 sentinels so far call him the arbiter, Lord Arbiter, right? So I think there's definitely the element of, we don't remember necessarily why we're doing this, because I think what I really like, and I think what's rather lacking, unfortunately, in 2.0, 2.1's kind of silly. So I'm not going to go too deep, but in 2.0, my biggest critic was that I feel we don't really see Rover's personality. He's there, he's nice, he's helping everyone, he's trying to figure things out, both for Abby and also for kind of helping Renacita, because it's that kind of main character path, right? We're just helping Jinzhou, we're helping Renacita. It's just something that we do. And I think that's also like something that we can also do in real life. We don't necessarily think of ourselves as a hero, but you can still make change in your life. And I'm not going to go too deep into the theory of agency, but you can look it up. We all have agency. No matter how small of a power we think we have, we still have agency. So again, returning to like what I was saying about the rover, I think the situation is that Rover don't remember, Rover don't really remember. Rover doesn't consciously remember that he is doing another timeline to save humanity. But I think he unconsciously remember in a way that, he's deciding to do things differently. He's deciding to trying to go about it and try to like to save everyone, because I kind of have a feeling that maybe in the previous timeline the shopkeeper merged with the Tethys system and Kachathia died, and like Renasisa was safe but Kachathia died, and Rover's kind of like, okay, like this doesn't work, like we have, he has to choose to like trying to save everyone, because maybe something will be different this time, because maybe this time the humanity would not vanish, and let's also remember that the reason why he has to keep doing this is because we cannot take Thenodian darkness, this kind of like the seed of destruction, out of humanity, because the humanity itself contains the seed of destruction. So like he can't just like save the world and like clean it all up. He can only like keep repeating this timeline. It's just kind of depressing, like repeating timeline and hoping that in this timeline he can set things straight, he can set things right, and humanity survive somehow. I think that would be kind of like the ending of Wuthering Waves. I don't know how long it's going to go, hopefully like a good 5-10 years, maybe, I don't know, like we shall see, but that's kind of like the vibe that I'm talking about. So yeah, we don't know whether our universe is actually inside a black hole or we are the black hole itself. Like we never, well, it's just too big. I don't think this kind of like celestial theory problem, I don't think it will kind of like get solved necessarily in my lifetime. But yeah, it's there. So again, very, very interesting thought. But again, I truly believe that we either traveled back in time, or we are repeating this timeline and trying to save Solace 3 and trying to save humanity again, because that has been a consistent theme since 1.0. I'm going to close this with mentioning Chen-Pi. You guys remember Chen-Pi, the guy with the little dancing robot that we collect resonant casket to, right? And the thing with like resonant casket is that it doesn't necessarily contain energy or whatever. It just contains the culture and kind of like remnants of humanity pre-apocalypse, and they're trying to kind of like save it, because like what has destroyed cannot return. It's like we cannot have the entirety of city of Pompeii again because it's destroyed, but like what's left culturally is priceless, if you will. So I think that has been kind of like the kind of like silver lining in all Wuthering Waves story, is that to kind of like respect, not respect is not correct, to like honor humanity in its purest form, So yeah, I don't know whether this make any sense to anyone but myself, but like I'm having a lot of fun talking about this, and maybe like on my next meditation session I will like try to think of me as floating in a rock called Earth, but also like we're actually like spinning inside a black hole, and everything is inevitable, in a sense that the thing with like black hole is that once you get sucked, like that's it. you don't necessarily escape its gravity. Like even light doesn't escape the black hole's gravity. But like I think there's something almost divine, if you will, to me, since we're talking about Kachathia as well as the divine maiden. But there is something divine in that kind of like resignation, in knowing that maybe we're all already heading into oblivion, into the end, into destruction, right? Because like again, white hole is only a theory. It's kind of giving the same energy with maybe we're already dead, and the life that we experience right now, it's kind of scary thought, but like the life that we currently experience is the flashback that we have before we die. So we already live our life and we're currently dying, but our brain cannot process how we're dying, and this kind of like flashback feels like it's real life. Yay, a thought. I suppose it's rather morbid, but again, I don't know. I never like largely consciously I don't necessarily like fear death, because like it's gonna happen to everyone, you know. So if we're just like hurling towards the black hole, I can only hope like that I'm enjoying all of my moment here. And I like this little kind of like pocket of time in which I'm really rooted to the present and just like enjoy something that's like immensely beautiful. And I think the 2.2 main story really gives that to me, you know. Katathia's desire to save everyone however she can, even though she's like literally created by Thenodian, aligned with Rover's desire to help humanity. Again, this is just my guess. And maybe we all have like a little bit of that, you know, even if the person, the very person, the only person that we want to save is ourselves. It's not selfish, you know, like you want to have that little blink of brightness as we hurl into the black hole. It's a moment, but you know, like sometimes you just gotta cope. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like listen to this far, fantastic. I don't know why, but I really appreciate it. Hopefully this also like shed some light into your own kind of like what kind of philosophy and like belief, which is not necessarily religious, that you want to subscribe to in your life, because I think this is so fascinating. Let's move towards the white hole together as humanity, as our universe together, and just like enjoy the ride, you know, enjoy the hurling, enjoy the being pulled by gravity so dense that we're all gonna get stretched like spaghetti, or maybe angel hair. Now I kind of want pasta. Good night.